Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video episode on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian, and I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction House taking a look at some of the guns they have coming up for sale in their December 2014 premiere auction. Now, normally, I kind of avoid guns that are interesting only because of their provenance to a specific person. But in this particular auction, I found one particular example of a gun whose interest is primarily based on its provenance and who it was used by, but it's something that I find really interesting. It's this Colt Model 1908 Pocket Hammerless. It's in .380 caliber, and it is marked and modified by the Shanghai Municipal Police Department. So the story of the Shanghai Municipal Police Department is really pretty cool, and especially the guy who ran it. That was a man named William Fairbairn. He started off as an enlistee in the British Marine Corps, the British Royal Marines. He was stationed in China and lived there for several decades with a fanatical interest in hand-to-hand combatives and combatives in general. By the late 1920s, he was actually asked to take over training and consulting with the Shanghai Municipal Police Department. At the time, Shanghai was quite the bustling international city. It was probably the closest thing to a totally lawless environment in China, an absolute haven of crime and gangsters and all manner of intrigue. So in taking the job of running the police department there, Fairburn really had a huge challenge on his hands, and he did an amazing job at it. He developed a lot of what are really considered modern police techniques. He was pretty much the first person to develop the idea of the SWAT team and make it a practical reality. His officers had bulletproof vests, pretty much the first time a police department anywhere had used that. And a lot of his officers carried Colt 1908 pistols with some specific modifications, and this is one of them. I should also say, later on, Fairburn, when war with Japan and China broke out, between Japan and China broke out, Fairburn left, came back to the United Kingdom, and ended up being a major consultant to Allied Special Forces units through World War II. You may have heard of the Sykes Fairburn combat knife, which he was partially responsible for, and a great deal of special operations training all goes back to William Fairbairn. So why don't we bring the camera around here and take a closer look at exactly what he would do with a Colt 1908 that was intended for police use.
All right, so up here we have the Shanghai, the SMP gun. And I did also bring out a standard, gorgeous condition Colt 1903 of the same basic model, other than the caliber, that we can just use to compare some of the modifications that were done to the police gun. So we'll set this aside for the moment. One thing, let's start with the markings. You can see right there, Shanghai Municipal Police. That's a standard marking for these guns. And it also has a police issue number, 2973 in this case, that is on both the slide and the frame. That's not the serial number of the gun, which is here on the opposite side. So most of the modifications to this gun you'll see on the left side. For one thing, it has a lanyard loop added to the bottom of the grip, and the grip panel is cut out to allow that. You can see here on our standard 1903, there is no such thing. In addition, on our standard gun, you'll see the area right here above the safety is unadorned. One thing that Fairburn did was, on the Shanghai guns, they were all drilled and tapped for a little set screw to sit here. Now, the purpose of that screw was to prevent the safety from being engaged. Fairburn instructed his officers to all carry the guns in condition 3, meaning that they had a loaded magazine and an unloaded chamber. So you would draw the gun, rack the slide, and then proceed to shoot if you needed to. The reason that was often done, and this makes sense even today, I think, is because the safeties on these guns were very small. They were not necessarily all that easy to operate, especially under stress or with wet or dirty hands. It's easy to make an attempt at disengaging the safety and have it just not work right. Another modification that Fairburn did to all these guns was the addition of this, which is a little flat leaf spring held in place by a screw, and this is drilled right through the side of the slide. The screw doesn't protrude all the way through, but this spring does. There's some question as to exactly why this was done, and the reasoning is not totally clear. The best explanation I've seen is that this spring puts a little bit of pressure on the barrel, which it does, and in doing so actually works to prevent malfunctions. Now, the Colt 1903 or 08 is not exactly a gun prone to malfunction, and I'm not sure exactly how much effect a spring like that would have had, or frankly, or why exactly that spring pushing in that direction would be useful. But you know what? If a guy like Fairburn thought it was a good idea, I'd be willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. The other thing to consider is, for example, this is just under serial number 3000 of issue to the police department. When you get that many of a specific make and model of gun, and they're being used regularly, both for training and in actual shootouts, you start to learn about how a gun performs in a statistical way that you just don't get when you only have one or two of them that you're working with. So Fairburn may have found a legitimate issue with the 1908 design that this spring, with a little bit of pressure in the right place, does ameliorate. So the one other modification to the guns, distinctive of Fairburn and the Shanghai Police Department, is actually a modification to the magazine. Instead of having witness holes so that you could see how many rounds were in the magazine, instead of having those on the side, Fairburn had them placed on the front corner and on the back surface. This is another modification that is very distinctive to the Shanghai guns. Its purpose is something that eludes me, though. I'm not entirely sure why this would have offered a major improvement over the regular viewing holes. Lastly, when it was, the Shanghai guns were not all purchased as a single batch, and at some of the guns that were purchased had been modified, the design had been modified by Colt to include a magazine safety disconnect, so that if the magazine was not in the gun, it couldn't be fired. And when that was done, Fairburn would remove those from these guns. And that's another modification that's still done to this day for basically the same reasons, so that the gun can be fired while changing magazines.
So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something interesting about Fairburn and his tactics and ideas and his firearms. You can't really see it through the video, but there's something just really cool about having in your hand a piece of history like this that gives you that connection to a different time and place that you just can't necessarily get through reading or any other way than handling original artifacts. Now this is Rock Island Auction House, so this pistol is up for sale coming in December. And if you would be interested in adding it to your own personal collection, I think it's a fantastic piece. It's one of those guns that the condition is a little bit rough, the finish is worn here and there, but to me that makes it all the cooler, because that's all very honest finish that it got patrolling the streets of Shanghai during one of the most chaotic and lawless periods of any place, anywhere, anytime. At any rate, I have a link below to Rock Island's catalog page describing this pistol. You can go there, set up an account, and place a bid online right now if you're interested. So good luck. I know whoever wins this is going to be really happy with it. It's just an awesome piece. Thanks for watching, guys.